Hi, my name is Mike Hughes, and I wanted to share my KPI tracker with you. Now, keep in mind, this is an internal document, so I haven't presented it before. So this may be a little bit choppy. My goal is just to kind of walk you through it so that you can use it in your own business. The purpose of the spreadsheet is basically for me to have everything in one place for the team. Basically, we have our overall team goals, expense tracking, which is kind of in process, transactions, lead tracking, and then individual team members. Right now, I have the sheet set up to track up to 6 team members. However, the tabs do go up to 15, as you can see. So if you need more than 6, we can work on that. My goal is to have all of them working, but I just don't need more than 4 right now, so we did up to 6. I guess the first step here that you should consider going to is this data validation. We have everything kind of filled out. If you have agent names here, you always want to keep NA wherever it is, but your agent names. If you're using mortgage companies, we generally recommend Mortgage Master to everybody, or Cash, or Client Choice, Attorney, Home Inspector, Transaction Type, Commission Split. This is the split with the agent. The MLS commission. This is generally going to be used for buyer agency splits. Some statuses that you can just basically not touch. Touch every something again. It'll make more sense in a few minutes. And contact methods. So if you have different contact methods, add those. The purpose of the data validation sheet is just to make sure that extra garbage isn't being entered in the spreadsheet. So anyhow, now you know where to find it. So going back to the team goal, what you're going to see is some stuff in green. So basically, everything that you see here should self-populate, okay, except for the stuff in the green. This is, I call it closing distribution. You might call it the seasonality chart. Basically, what you want to do is look at your market and figure out when all the sales happen. So in my market, in the towns that we work in, 5% of the closings happen in January, 4% in February, 5% in March, and so on. Obviously, it should total 100. And once that's complete, basically, as people are plugging in their numbers and as your team goals get filled out, it's going to create this distribution for you automatically, so you can kind of see where you need appointments and transactions and buyer signs and so on, and then same with sellers down here. Okay, so just kind of walking you through this. All of these things, as you notice the numbers up here, everything gets totaled. So the gross annual revenue or agent revenue, that is going to come from the agent goals, which we'll jump to in a second. Gross operating revenue, this is basically team profit, and your average transaction price is something that you can easily calculate by looking at your previous year. Ours was $425, but it also is going to calculate that based on individual team members and their transactions. So tracking numbers is key, because if you have last year's stuff, you can kind of figure out what this year's going to look like. Gross volume, based on everybody's goals. This is where you're going to be at the end of the year. Now, I deleted all of our data because, frankly, we are behind our goals and it's a little bit embarrassing. But we're going to fill this out and you'll see exactly how it works. Average commission, again, as you are tracking numbers from last year, you can see, now surprisingly, you're probably going to find out that your average commission is lower than you had expected. Try to be true to this, and then your average commission per transaction. Again, this is average commission per transaction, and then in order to hit the the goals, basically we would need to sell 110 properties. Okay, and then over here we're going to see what the buyer to seller ratios need to look like. Everything's auto-populated based off of the agent sheets that you'll see in a second. So it's kind of pretty cool how it rolls up. and then you can see the number of buyer sides and seller sides that would be required. This is going to calculate how many contacts were made, open houses, stuff like that, based on the other sheets. And this is the breakdown. Now, for some reason, Google automatically goes to 50% when you're at 0, and in some places we were at 0, and so it goes to this point. But basically, it's going to figure out, in order to close 84 transactions, we need to meet with 189 buyers, and that is if we are converting half of the buyer appointments, and then if we're converting half of the buyer appointments to actual closed deals. Same thing with the sellers, and we need to meet with 63 in order to close 28 using these 50-50 ratios. Of course, if you have any questions on this, let me know, but I think once you start playing with it, it'll be kind of become more clear. Over here, based on our buyer schedule, so going up to, where is it, needing to meet with 189, you can see we need to meet with 189 buyers. Using the seasonality that we plugged in, that means in January we should have 9 appointments. July, obviously, we should have 26 appointments. More houses get sold around then. I don't have lag time built in for how long it takes a property to close, but I think this still pretty much serves the purpose. This is using that 50% ratio, and then again the other 50% ratio. So this is what your goal looks like, and this is what your actual is going to look like. So when the agents start plugging in their data, this is going to populate, and you're going to see whether you are ahead or behind in your sales. So your target volume, this will take your actual volume and your percentage of goal, and then office revenue. Same thing for seller, and then we kind of have a leader chart over here as far as who's converting. So you can basically look at who's better with buyers, who's better with sellers, who maybe needs to be coached up a little bit. Expenses. What I've been working on here is Greg Crabtree's concept. So I've been trying to fill this out. I just got busy and didn't get a chance to fill it out, but my goal is to wrap that up. But basically, you've got your lead gen stuff down here, and that's going to calculate up here. If you kind of click on any of these cells, you can see what they're calculating. But and then your expenses and revenues by the month up top. Bottom line, this is kind of a work in progress. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. Transactions. So this is going to show you what your pendings are, your actives, your closed. All right. And so basically, let's say that you meet with somebody, and I kind of added this as we went, but let's say we meet with somebody to June 1st. So today's the 28th. Meet with them on June 1st. Plug in that date. The field will turn blue. It just, once this starts filling out, makes it a little bit easier for everything to be identified if something's missing. And initially, this goes to our data validation. They're active. Okay. Closing date, we'll say, is June 29. Property address 123 Main. Client name, good guy. Transaction fee, we'll just put 0. Buyer or seller, we'll put seller, sale price 500. Commission 2.5, again, data validation. Agent, say that's mine. Agent split, give myself 60%. That calculates the agent's commission. Agent 2, there is no agent 2, but if you had like an inside salesperson or somebody like that, that's where they would be. Agent 3, again, don't have anybody, but if you have 2 agents maybe sharing a deal. I just got this idea from another spreadsheet that I thought it was a pretty cool idea. Team revenue, so in a 60-40 split, this is what goes to the team. Lead source, you want to know what's working for you, obviously. And the reason for this, I took this from NAEA's idea. You want to know who to give credit to or who to maybe get some marketing funds from. And this allows you to easily track that. Referrals paid, 0. Any other notes? Closing week, so you can kind of track that. Contract length, I didn't fill that out, so it looks a little wonky. They had the offer accepted, let's say June 15th. Okay, so offers accepted June 15. They're closing tomorrow. And what this tells you is that from your, this is basically your turn rate. So from the time that you get the agency signed to an accepted offer, you're looking at like 11 days. This could be your listing appointment, so in addition to your days on market, you can kind of track your contract length. Anyhow, so that is that. You can see that calculates your actives here. Okay, so that's an active listing. You could put buyers in here too if you have buyer contracts. Move it to pending, and it's going to update that to pending. When you close that, it's going to move it over to closed, and you can see the average transaction amount, average commission, and so on. Going back to the team goal, it should, where am I? Yep, populates it over here. So we're in June. So we had one transaction in June for 500,000. That puts us at 29% of our monthly goal with the office revenue, and it gives us some total down there. Obviously, our annual goal would be only at 4%. So it's kind of cool if you like things like that, which I do. Lead tracker, similar to the other one, it fills. And so if you have a hot lead, this says do not update. That should probably be in red. But basically, don't update that field. Lead date. So let's say you got a lead June 15. Assign it to Amy. And we'll say that was good guy again. And in the meeting, we might say, you need to talk to that person at least every 7 days. It's a cold call. If it's a buyer or a seller, you might say, they're probably going to sell for about 500, or they're probably going to buy for about 500. So this is going to show the agent what they can potentially make out of the leads that they have. So that's really the goal behind this. I want to know how much. It shows whether they're a buyer or seller. I want to show the agent, you have these leads lined up. If you close them, this is what you're going to get, which is pretty exciting. And it also helps me track for budgeting purposes. Assigned by, if you have an ISA, or if I just flipped it over, it would be me. If there's an ISA on the lead, you want to make sure that they're in there. And then the last touch. So you talk to them on the 18th. Good job. Phone call. That's a data validation trigger. And so the clock. They have been talked to 10 days ago. Okay. And this by default turns red after 30, but you can see that the plan was to talk to them every 7 days. And in this case, we only talked to them 10 days ago. So some follow-ups required there. It's just an easy way to track this. Team numbers. This is, again, a sheet that everything gets rolled up by week number according to our plan, which again is based off every agent's individual plan. Based on our plan, we need to meet with 2 buyers a week here, okay? And then the year to date, we needed 8, and so on, okay? So it shows what needs to be happening with buyers, what needs to be happening with listings and sellers, and then total close. So it shows you all of this. Now, there is a little bit of a kink here because I'm just rounding up, and adding it. So basically, this is saying in week 1 we need 5, in week 2 we need 5 more, in week 3 we need 5 more. But that's only because we've been adding that up. For the month, we're really only looking at 5. Okay, so again, you get what you pay for, but if your team is hitting these numbers, then that's pretty amazing and exciting, and maybe there's some reward that you want to think about or talk about. So Agent 1. So we used to do this on paper. This is my agent sheet. I put myself on an average 55 split, so I just plug that in over here. My seasonality is the same as the overall spreadsheet. It does let each agent use their own seasonality, but I just end up copying it. In fact, what you could do is even reference that front page if you wanted to cross-populate everything. But some agents might just naturally sell more at different times of the year. It's my gross annual goal, my average transaction fee, or my average transaction price, cycle time for buyers and sellers. Now this is what I didn't have data on. However, at the end of this year, when I go back and look at my, where am I? Contract length. Basically, contract length is going to equal my cycle time. So I can look at my buyers and sellers and say, gee, I meet a buyer and they don't do anything for 2 months, or I meet a seller and they aren't really ready to go for 4 months. And so it's just more information that you can work with. Based on my average commission, my average splits, and so on, I need to sell 38 properties in order to get gross volume of 16 million. Okay. Again, it's going to calculate everything. Business from the sell side. This is the only other field, so remember, only update the fields that are in green. This is going to automatically, if I plug in 70%, it's going to do 30 on the buy side, or if I plug in 50%, it would automatically calculate that. Again, now it's going to go through based on the numbers that I've entered. So if I haven't entered any numbers, it defaults to 50% conversion. In order to close 12 buyers, which is 30% of 38, I need to meet with 27 buyers. In order to close 27 sellers, I need to meet with 62 sellers. And this is when I need to meet with each of them. Okay, so in July, I should be meeting with 4 buyers, figure 1 every month or every week. In July, I should be meeting with 9 sellers, okay? And again, it shows what I should be closing. This is that sample closing that we plugged in earlier. I'm going to show you my numbers tracker in a second that fills in all of this information. Personal stats, contacts made, nurtures, hours prospecting, open houses, contacts to appointment, and so on. All that gets tracked. This basically, we decided that we have a few different lead sources, and we said, well, in order to meet the goals, how many leads do we need? And so in order to do that, we just kind of filled in some of these numbers. I will let you kind of play with this because you can basically see how many buyer leads. Now let's see. Let me explain this a little bit. So 62 and 27, that's how many leads you need. 27 buyers, 62 sellers. So I plug that in down here, 62 sellers, 27 buyer leads equals 89, okay? For some reason this rounds up, not a big deal. But that's how many leads we need. And then what we say is, well, based on how many leads we need, what percentage of business will everything come from? So, my sphere, how many people are going to come from that percentage-wise? How many people from door knocking, cold calling, and so on? Once you plug in the percentage, it tells you how many leads that you need for that, and the percentage, or basically your forecasted income. So it's not perfect. Some of these things we tweaked based on our numbers, but you can do the same. Agent 1 numbers. So each agent has their kind of business plan here, and then their numbers tracker. So the way we have this set up is Google Forms actually feeds into this. And I'll try to do another video that can show you how to set that up. But if for the time being you don't have that, just either have your agents share this document and fill it in themselves, or you fill it in during team meetings, or maybe have an admin fill it in. Let me just show you what happens here. Let's say we fill in today's numbers, 6/28. Well, I don't know if it'll pick up the year, so I'm going to just plug in the whole enchilada. I guess it doesn't matter. So 6/28, let's say 3 hours prospected, 80 dials, 25 that'd be high. Let's say 20 contacts. How many SOI did you talk to? Let's say just 1. Handwritten notes, 0. Face-to-face, 1. New buyer appointments, you get it. New buyers met. So here they set the appointment, here they actually meet with them, here they set the buyer agency agreement. New seller appointments, new sellers met. So again, you're setting the appointment and you're actually meeting with them. Listing taken, 1. Open houses held, 0. Then a journal, met with person, we'll say met with Main Street, okay? Now this is pretty badass basically. This is going to roll up everything by the week, okay? So this field, basically, just to show off for a second, creates all this other stuff. And so if I do, let's say I basically do the same thing 2 days in a row. And the reason you might use this weekly roll-up is because you might have a team meeting once a week and you need to know basically how each person's doing. Now you can just go to the week number, see that this person prospected for 6 hours, 160 dials, 40 contacts. So it's basically rolling off those two numbers. Over here, back in agent goal, it's going to go down and calculate this and show I made 40 contacts, 2 nurtures, 6 hours prospecting, and contacts to listing agreement, because I put in that I got that listing. So for every 20 people I talk to, I get a listing agreement, and then contacts to closing is 40. Okay, so it'll kind of track what that person's ratios are. And if we go over here in the team numbers, it should actually show that too. Yeah. Okay. So you can look at a whole and see what the team's doing. I think that is basically it. I guess one last thing that I should point out, contacts made, again, it will roll everything up so you can kind of see how you guys are doing as a whole. Those are from the transactions. And I hope this helps. I hope this spreadsheet helps you. It's nice because there's no recurring costs, so there you go. If you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to email me, call me. I'd be happy to talk through this or figure out ways to make it better. Take care.